In the year 2027, planet Earth had undergone a monumental transformation. A mere 3 years prior, humanity had its first encounter with extraterrestrial beings, revealing that multiple alien civilizations had been observing us for centuries. This revelation sent seismic waves through society. Immense alien spacecraft perpetually hung in Earth's orbit, visible on clear nights, acting as a persistent reminder that humankind was no longer the solitary intelligent species in the cosmos. However, for 29-year-old Gary Benson, life remained stubbornly routine. He possessed a modest, ranch-style home on the fringe of Millbrook, Ohio, a town with a population of 12,483 residents. The house was in need of a fresh coat of paint, and the lawn could certainly benefit from some care, but it was his sanctuary. He had acquired it at a bargain price after a painful relationship had ended 2 years prior, craving a peaceful place to rebuild his life. It was a humid Tuesday in July when Gary found himself underneath a Chevrolet Impala at Davidson's Auto Repair when his boss, Patrick, nudged his foot. "To Benson, are you planning on taking up permanent residence under there?" Gary slid out from beneath the vehicle, wiping away perspiration from his brow. "Just completing the oil change." "Well, you can finish that later, your mail was delivered here again," Patrick stated, tossing a thick envelope onto Gary's chest. It landed with a soft thud. The envelope was substantial, made from luxurious cream-colored paper. A gleaming gold seal of the Department of Extraterrestrial Affairs was in the corner. Gary sat up, his brow furrowed. He never received government correspondence. "That looks fancy," Patrick remarked, peering over his shoulder. "Maybe you won the lottery?" "Yeah, right," Gary scoffed, turning the envelope over. His name and address were printed in neat black lettering. There was no return address. He chose not to open it until that evening. After heating up a frozen meal in the microwave, he settled into his well-worn leather armchair, a bargain find from a yard sale that had become his favorite spot in the house. The television played in the background, broadcasting yet another discussion about the latest alien trade agreements. The letter within was printed on the same expensive paper as the envelope. It read, "Dear Mr. Benson, you have been selected as a participant in Project Concord, a joint initiative between Earth governments and our extraterrestrial allies. This program is designed to strengthen diplomatic ties through arranged marriages between human citizens and compatible alien species. Our thorough compatibility algorithms have identified you as an ideal candidate. Your psychological makeup, genetic markers, and social history all indicate significant potential for successful integration with multiple partner species. You have been assigned 3 marriage partners from the following civilizations: the Xylo Collective, the Lyra Alliance, and the Cygnus Concord. A representative will visit within 48 hours to provide detailed information and begin the integration process. Participation is obligatory under the terms of Earth Treaty 20273. Non-compliance will result in significant penalties. Congratulations on your selection for this historic program. Sincerely, Dr. Eleanor Morales, Director, Project Concord." Gary reread the letter 3 times, his frozen dinner forgotten. This had to be a joke, possibly a prank by his colleague, Richard, who was always pulling his leg, but the official seal had seemed rather genuine. His hands trembled as he pulled his phone from his pocket and Googled Project Concord. Numerous news articles surfaced, the most current being from that morning's New York Times. It stated that the first group of marriages would begin this month, with 300 humans selected worldwide. Gary felt a lurch in his stomach. The TV shifted to a news update: Project Concord participants are being notified this week. Sources confirm that some humans have been paired with multiple partners to accommodate different cultural practices among alien species. He muted the television and let the letter fall to the floor. 3 wives, they were giving him 3 alien wives. Him, Gary Benson, who hadn't been on a date in 2 years and whose most meaningful relationship was with his recliner. "This can't be happening," he muttered to his empty living room, but deep down, he knew it was. The world had changed, and his quiet life was about to transform along with it. The following morning, Gary was wiping away grease from his hands, inspecting the timing belt he had just replaced. Another successful repair at Davidson's Auto, however his mind was still preoccupied with the bizarre letter he had left on his kitchen counter. The government seal had appeared legitimate, but the content was too outlandish to be factual. The shop's radio was broadcasting news regarding the most recent advancements in human-alien relations. 5 years since first contact, and people were still unable to cease their discussions of it. Gary tuned it out, focusing his attention on finishing for the day. "Hey, Benson," Patrick, his boss, called out from the office, "there are some individuals here to see you. They say they're with the government." Gary felt a sinking sensation in his stomach. 2 figures in perfectly tailored suits stood in the doorway, their badges gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Mr. Benson, the taller one said, "I'm Agent Chen, and this is Agent Rodriguez. We are here regarding Project Concord, the marriage program." Gary's voice trembled. "There must be some mistake. I never signed up for this." "Participation is not voluntary, Mr. Benson," Agent Rodriguez interrupted. "You have been selected based on comprehensive compatibility algorithms." Gary leaned against a workbench. "So that letter wasn't a joke?" "Not only is it real," Agent Chen stated, "but you have been chosen for a special situation. You are being assigned 3 wives." The wrench Gary was holding clattered to the floor. 3? Your living situation has already been assessed. Your home meets the minimum requirements for a family of 4. "This is insane," Gary muttered. "I can barely manage my own life." "Your first wife arrives tomorrow," Agent Rodriguez said, interrupting, as she checked her tablet. "The others will follow within 48 hours. "Tomorrow?" Gary's voice rose. "I haven't even had time to process this." "Here is your information packet," Agent Chen stated, handing him a thick manila envelope. "Everything you need to know about your wives, their species, and their cultural requirements is inside." After they departed, Gary sat in his truck, staring at the envelope. Inside were 3 photographs. The first showcased a tall woman with fair complexion and sharp features. Her name was Alana, and her species was labeled as Xylo. The second photograph depicted a shorter woman with olive skin, who appeared to have barely contained energy. Her name was Lyra, and she was designated as Lyra Alliance. The third showcased a slender woman with warm brown skin and gentle eyes. Her name was Kara, and her species was listed as Cygnus. That night, Gary walked in circles around his small house, running his fingers through his dark hair. The place seemed inadequate all of a sudden. His bachelor pad consisted of a modest living room, kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and a single bathroom. Where would everyone sleep? The doorbell rang at precisely 9 a.m. the next morning. Gary opened it to find Alana standing there, her posture flawless, holding a meticulously packed suitcase. "Greetings, husband," she said, extending her hand. "I have calculated that our compatibility rating is 87.3%, which exceeds the program's requirements by 12.4 percentage points." Before Gary could respond, the sound of running feet grew closer, and suddenly Lyra appeared, vaulting over Alana's suitcase. "Ha! First one inside wins," she declared, sprinting past Gary into the house. "You weren't scheduled to arrive until tomorrow," Alana said, frowning. "Boring. Why wait?" Lyra called out from somewhere within. A soft touch on Gary's shoulder caused him to jump. Kara stood behind him, having somehow approached without making a sound. Her eyes seemed to look right through him. "You're overwhelmed," she said softly. "Your emotions are chaotic." Gary stepped back, bumping into the door frame. "Look, all of you, I'm not ready for this. I didn't ask for this. I've already developed an optimal living arrangement schedule," Alana announced, pulling out a tablet, including bathroom rotations, meal planning, and designated quiet hours. A crash came from the kitchen, followed by Lyra's voice, "Hey! Who wants to race to see who can organize their stuff the fastest?" "That would disrupt the efficiency of my proposed system," Alana protested. Kara moved closer to Gary, her presence strangely calming despite the chaos. "Your heart rate is elevated. Shall I help you find your center?" "My what?" Gary stepped back again, only to collide with Alana's suitcase. The rest of the morning descended into sheer chaos. Alana attempted to implement her systems, while Lyra deliberately disrupted them, turning everything into a competition. Kara drifted through the house, occasionally touching things and commenting on the emotional residue they contained. By noon, Gary sat on his couch, now relocated by Lyra during what she had called extreme furniture racing, watching his once peaceful home transform into something unrecognizable. Alana had covered one wall with complex charts and schedules. Lyra had somehow turned the spare bedroom into what she called a victory vault. Kara had filled the house with strange crystals that she claimed helped balance the emotional frequencies. Through the window, he could see his neighbors gathering, pointing and whispering. Mrs. Henderson, from next door, nearly dropped her gardening shears when Lyra challenged Alana to a handstand contest on the front lawn. "This is just the first day," Gary muttered to himself, watching Kara attempt to mediate between her competitive sister wives, while simultaneously trying to harmonize their conflicting auras. The sound of another crash from the kitchen caused him to wince. 3 wives, 3 alien wives, his peaceful life had just become anything but quiet. By late afternoon, Gary's home had become completely transformed. Alana had taken over the dining room table, spreading out detailed floor plans and what appeared to be mathematical formulas for optimal space utilization. Her long fingers traced precise patterns across the papers as she muttered calculations under her breath. "The current arrangement is inefficient," she declared, straightening her already perfect posture. "We must maximize our living space by implementing a rotating schedule." A loud thump from upstairs interrupted her, followed by Lyra's triumphant shout. "Personal best! Unpacked 3 boxes in under 2 minutes. That is not the proper way to organize belongings," Alana called up, her fair features pinched with disapproval. "There are protocols. Protocols are for losers." Lyra appeared at the top of the stairs, grinning. Her olive skin glowed with a slight sheen of what might have been competitive unpacking sweat. "Hey, Gary, want to race me to see who can sort the kitchen cabinets faster?" Before Gary could respond, Kara emerged from the living room, her movements fluid and graceful. The emotional resonance in this space is discordant. She held up one of her crystals, which seemed to pulse with a faint inner light. "Perhaps we should all take a moment to align our energies." "I don't require energy alignment," Alana stated, "my calculations are perfectly optimized." "Bet I can align faster than you," Lyra interrupted, bounding down the stairs. Gary slipped away during the ensuing debate about whether spiritual alignment could be quantified and timed. He retreated to his garage, the only space still untouched by alien influence, and leaned against his tool chest, taking deep breaths. Through the window, he could see more neighbors gathering. Old Mr. Peterson was actually recording with his phone. A group of teenagers had stopped their bikes to stare as Lyra did cartwheels across the front lawn, while Alana loudly calculated the statistical probability of injury. The garage door opened quietly, and Kara stepped in. "You're seeking solitude," she said. "It wasn't a question." "I just need a minute," Gary replied, running a hand through his hair. She nodded, her warm brown eyes understanding. "Change creates emotional turbulence. It's natural." "Natural?" "None of this is natural," he gestured vaguely toward the house. "Yesterday, I was just a mechanic. Now, I'm supposed to be some kind of intergalactic husband." "You feel you are inadequate to the task," Kara observed. She moved closer, and Gary felt an inexplicable wave of calm wash over him. "Yet your aura suggests otherwise." Before Gary could ask what exactly his aura was suggesting, the garage door burst open. Lyra stood there, practically vibrating with energy. "Hey, no fair having private bonding time without competition. I challenge you both to." According to my schedules, Alana appeared behind her, tablet in hand. "This is designated group integration period. We should all be participating in structured relationship building exercises." Gary looked between his 3 new wives, the logical mathematician, the perpetual competitor, and the emotional empath, and realized his life would never be the same. The question was, would that turn out to be a good thing? The structured relationship building exercises turned out to be exactly as rigid as Gary feared. Alana had created an extensive PowerPoint presentation, complete with relationship metrics, compatibility graphs, and something she called optimal bonding trajectories. These charts clearly demonstrate the most efficient path to collective harmony, she explained, standing before them in the living room. Gary sat awkwardly on the couch, between Lyra, who was doing one-handed push-ups on the floor, and Kara, who kept touching his arm whenever his anxiety spiked. Question. Lyra sprang up. Can we turn this into a competition? First one to reach optimal bonding wins. Alana's eye twitched slightly. Bonding cannot be quantified as a race. Sure it can. Everything's a race if you try hard enough, Lyra winked at Gary. Bet I can bond with him faster than both of you combined. That's not how emotional connections work, Kara said softly, her hand brushing Gary's shoulder. I can sense our husband's discomfort with forcing such things. Gary shifted uncomfortably. Look, maybe we could just talk like normal people? Three pairs of eyes turned to him with varying degrees of confusion. Define normal, Alana requested, pulling out her tablet. I'll need parameters for this conversational framework. I bet I can talk more normally than anyone. Lyra declared. Perhaps, Kara suggested, we should let Gary guide this interaction. Gary ran a hand through his hair. Okay, why don't you tell me about yourselves? Your worlds? Your cultures? This proved to be both the right and wrong question to ask. Alana immediately launched into a detailed historical analysis of the Xylo collective's mathematical evolution. Lyra interrupted with increasingly outlandish tales of Lyra Alliance athletic achievements. Kara tried to describe Cygnus's emotional resonance patterns through interpretive hand gestures. And that's why all our architecture is based on the Fibonacci sequence, Alana was saying. Once wrestled a quantum bear with just my left pinky, Lyra boasted. The harmonic convergence of souls transcends physical dimensions, Kara mused. Gary's head spun. He stood up abruptly. I need some air. The evening air was cool on his face as he stepped onto his front porch. Behind him, he could hear his wives debating whether to follow him. Alana was consulting her schedule to see if this was an approved solitude period. Lyra wanted to race him around the block. Kara was concerned about his emotional wavelengths. Quite the collection you've got there, son. Gary turned to find Mr. Peterson, his elderly neighbor, leaning on the fence. The old man's expression was somewhere between amusement and concern. It's not what you think, Gary started, then realized he had no idea what anyone would think of this situation. Oh, so you haven't got 3 alien wives trying to turn your house into a circus? Gary felt heat rise to his face. They're different, he admitted, leaning against the porch railing, but interesting. As if on cue, Lyra bounded out the front door, dressed in what appeared to be workout gear that hugged her athletic frame. Gary! Race you around the block. Winner gets first kiss. Before he could respond, she was already sprinting down the sidewalk, her olive skin gleaming in the evening light. Despite himself, Gary found his eyes following her powerful, graceful movements. Your cortisol levels are elevated, came Kara's soft voice behind him. She stepped close, her presence bringing that now familiar wave of calm. The thin fabric of her dress whispered against his arm. But there's something else too, attraction. Gary swallowed hard. He couldn't deny the effect these women were having on him, each in their own unique way. Alana emerged from the house, her tablet forgotten for once. The setting sun caught her fair features, highlighting her elegant bone structure. According to my calculations, this would be an optimal moment for initial physical contact. She moved closer, her analytical expression softening slightly. If you're agreeable. Gary's pulse quickened as he found himself suddenly surrounded by his 3 wives, each radiating their own distinct kind of appeal. Lyra jogged back up, barely winded. I win. So, about that kiss. Actually, Kara interjected, her fingers trailing along Gary's arm, I believe our husband's emotional signature suggests he's attracted to all of us. Of course he is. Lyra grinned. We're awesome. But I'm clearly the most awesome. That's not a measurable metric, Alana protested, but there was a playful glint in her eye that Gary hadn't seen before. Looking at them now, Gary realized something he'd been too overwhelmed to notice earlier. Yes, they were aliens. Yes, this situation was bizarre. But they were also beautiful, fascinating women who, for whatever reason, had been chosen to be his wives. A first kiss should follow logical progression, Alana stated, stepping closer to Gary. Her cool composure slipped slightly as their eyes met. Though I find my usual calculation somewhat disrupted by your proximity. Lyra bounced on her toes, radiating competitive energy. Forget logic. I won the race. I claim my prize. But despite her bold words, there was a hint of genuine nervousness in her playful smile. Your emotions are intense, Kara murmured, her hand still resting on Gary's arm. All of ours are. Gary felt the last of his resistance melting away. These women might be aliens, might have been assigned to him by some government program, but there was no denying the chemistry building between them. Maybe, he said carefully, looking at each of them in turn, we could start over? Get to know each other properly, without schedules, or competitions, or emotional resonance readings. I suppose my optimization algorithms could allow for some flexibility, Alana conceded, a slight blush coloring her fair cheeks. And maybe not everything has to be a race, Lyra admitted, moving closer until Gary could feel the heat radiating from her athletic frame. Kara simply smiled, her presence a soothing counterpoint to the electric tension in the air. Gary took a deep breath. Dinner. Just the four of us. We could talk like regular people, on a first date. First date? Lyra's eyes lit up. I bet I can be the best date. She caught herself and grinned sheepishly. I mean, yes, dinner sounds nice. I'll calculate the optimal restaurant choices, Alana said, reaching for her tablet, then stopping herself. Or we could simply choose one that appeals to us all. The emotional harmony is improving already, Kara observed, her fingers trailing down Gary's arm in a way that sent pleasant shivers through him. As they headed inside to get ready, Gary realized he was actually looking forward to dinner. His wives might be aliens, but they were becoming more intriguing by the minute, and, judging by the looks they kept giving him, the feeling was mutual.